So it has been a crazy day so far with information that have been coming out from the Microsoft Xbox versus FTC case right now that is going on, and lots of things to talk about, from Jim Ryan being caught essentially lying about the whole Call of Duty exclusivity thing, about when we're going to be getting the next generation of consoles, and many other things. So let's just jump right into it here with the first thing, which it has to do with the PlayStation 6. So as of right now, the understanding is that Microsoft's next Xbox and the PlayStation 6 is going to be releasing in 2028. And this is very relevant with this case because there were some documents that have come out where Sony is saying that they actually will withhold the PlayStation 6 details from Activision if Call of Duty and Activision are acquired by Microsoft, and they're saying this can negatively impact the PlayStation 6 development. Now, this is an interesting point here because I don't believe it whatsoever. I feel like this is more of just a threat than anything. When you look at Call of Duty and how much money it brings over to that platform, I believe that they are going to eventually have to give in and provide that information to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation. I think Call of Duty and Activision have much more leverage over PlayStation when it comes to that game. We've seen the financial numbers about it. But the other thing people say, maybe they just won't provide the exact details of what the PlayStation 6 is going to be, and then they'll go ahead and provide a dev kit later on. We will have to wait and see, but this is something that, I mean, this is trying to make it seem like if this acquisition does go through, the future generations of consoles will be greatly affected, which could be anti-competitive. Now, the next thing we did find out officially now, which I'm not surprised about this either, I did see this coming, is that Indiana Jones, which is a very highly anticipated game coming out from Bethesda, has now been confirmed as an Xbox console exclusive and Xbox ecosystem exclusive. This was brought up during the trial where Pete Hines talked about this, and this is exactly what Pete Hines said and what Pete Hines confirmed. An FTC lawyer asked Pete Hines, saying, before Bethesda was acquired by Microsoft, Disney had signed an agreement with its parent ZeniMax to make an Indiana Jones game for multiple consoles. Pete Hines replied, yes. It says the publishing boss was then asked to confirm if after Microsoft's acquisition, Disney brought up the issue of which consoles the Indiana Jones game would be released for. Pete Hines again replies, yes. And then he confirmed that Bethesda had later amended the Disney agreement and that Indiana Jones will now be an Xbox and PC exclusive and a day one release on Xbox Game Pass, which again, not surprising. We heard right after the acquisition of ZeniMax and Bethesda was that new IPs, new games are going to be exclusive to the Xbox ecosystem. Existing games such as Elder Scrolls Online will continuously be multi-platform and continuously be supported on those platforms. So this is no different than what Microsoft and Xbox have been saying since the beginning, but now it is 100% confirmed because people were still going to go out there and make those arguments and those debates as to whether this game was going to be exclusive or not. PlayStation guys were hoping it wouldn't be exclusive, but now you can confirm going forward, unless something drastically changes here, that Indiana Jones going forward will be an Xbox ecosystem and an Xbox console exclusive. So that's another big game within their portfolio that hopefully we are going to be able to see soon. Now let's jump over here to, I would say, the most damning thing throughout this case so far, and probably will have a huge effect as to how the court actually rules on this stuff. I mean, I would think so, but I'm not the judge or the lawyers in this case. But as we know, from the beginning of the Xbox Activision Blizzard acquisition, we have continuously heard Jim Ryan, continuously heard PlayStation talk about how they will not be able to operate without Call of Duty. And they believe Microsoft has complete incentive to take Call of Duty off of the PlayStation platform or to degrade the game in some way or another, just to hurt PlayStation specifically. And there was an email that came out showing that Jim Ryan never actually thought this, and he knew from the beginning that this acquisition was not about exclusivity. And let's read exactly what this email says, because I mean, it really throws out any argument people can have that PlayStation truly believes that Call of Duty was going to be taken off their platform on purpose to hurt them as a platform. It says here, it's not an exclusivity play at all, said Ryan. They're thinking bigger than that, and they have the cash to make moves like this. I've spent a fair amount of time with Phil Spencer, Bobby Kotick, and I'm pretty sure we will continue to see Call of Duty on PlayStation for years to come. So obviously this runs absolutely opposite to everything that they have been arguing so far. They knew this thing wasn't going to be going exclusive. They just don't want this deal to happen, which is very similar to what Lulu Chang Meserve tweeted out, where Jim Ryan essentially said they just don't want the deal. They don't even want to negotiate and make that 10-year deal with Microsoft and Xbox for Call of Duty. Now, Jim Ryan did go on and he did say, we have some good stuff cooking. I'm not complacent. I'd rather this didn't happen, but we'll be okay. We'll be more than okay. So all of the arguments about Call of Duty ruining PlayStation, them having to shut down, them not being able to survive, all of that stuff, you could say it was essentially PlayStation lying to try to get the regulators to look more deeply into this acquisition and potentially at the end of the day completely block this acquisition, which it has worked so far with the CMA. And it has worked as well as with the FTC, but the FTC right now, their arguments after stuff like this coming out is seemingly looking worse than it was originally. And we know Microsoft initially offered Call of Duty for 3 years after the current agreement for Activision. And Jim Ryan said that was inadequate. And then they offered 10-year deal for Call of Duty, plus 10-year deals to everybody else out there who literally wanted a license to Call of Duty, whether that was through streaming or just showing up on the platform, for example, with the Nintendo Switch. Now, when it comes to the console wars, Xbox here is kind of playing the victim card, or the weak card, I would say, that they are saying that they have essentially lost the console wars as they're trying to get Activision Blizzard, specifically mentioning this. Xbox consoles has consistently ranked third behind PlayStation and Nintendo in sales. In 2021, Xbox had a share of 16%, while Nintendo and PlayStation had shares of redacted and redacted, respectively. Likewise, for console revenues and share of consoles currently in use by gamers, the install base, Xbox trails with 21%, while PlayStation and Nintendo have shares of, and then that's redacted as well. So they're out here saying that they have lost the console wars because they are so far behind. And specifically in a document in the section where they're talking about this, it says that a section of the document submitted by Microsoft describes its entry into the gaming industry in 2001 when its original Xbox console was outsold by both Sony and Nintendo by a significant margin. And per Xbox, it hasn't stopped losing the console wars ever since. And this goes all the way back to, I would say, even with the kind of funny interview with Phil Spencer, where he was essentially saying, specifically when it comes to the console wars, now this isn't the entire war between PlayStation and Xbox, this is only focusing on the box. They aren't going to be able to catch PlayStation. They don't believe they will be able to catch PlayStation. Even if a game like Starfield is 11 out of 10, it won't move the needle enough to give them closer to the market share of what PlayStation has, which is why they are shifting their strategy to the ecosystem and opening up their games to be played essentially anywhere that people have access to the ecosystem. And it is a very smart business move. And this acquisition, if it does pass, is going to really, really help them. And I do believe in the next decade or so, Xbox is going to be making more money than PlayStation. They aren't going to be third overall in terms of a video game company. I think they will end up being ahead of PlayStation. But when it comes to the specific box, PlayStation has such a large lead in the market that it will be almost impossible to catch up. Also, because of what he said about the Xbox One generation, losing that generation, it's going to be really tough to get people away from the console that was their dominant console because they have their entire digital library. So this was just some of the interesting things that have come out so far during this case. And there's obviously going to be more stuff that will come out and we will talk about it. But if you did enjoy this video, hit that thumbs up. If you are new here, hit that subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.